Good afternoon, colleagues. This is Kamala Anderson from the Office of Distance Learning. Can you confirm if you're hearing me, please?
Hearing you clearly. Good
All
afternoon.
all right, thank you so much. Okay, so I'm seeing that it's now 2 o'clock, and I do want to not take persons' time for granted. I do want to thank the persons who made the effort to come out on time. So firstly, I'm just going to um, make state a note about a slight change in your moderator. So on the flyer, you would have seen that the session should be moderated by Ms. Peck, and Ms. Peck is in the room with us. Ms. Peck and I work together in the Office of Distance Learning. She is a Distance Learning and Training Officer, and I am the Instructional Design Specialist. But Ms. Peck is still recovering from a cold, and her voice, she coughs quite frequently when she speaks a lot. So I am doing the session for her today, and she is here to fill in any gaps that may be missing or necessary. All right, so just a quick note there about the change in moderator. So just to give a little background, um, so as you know that most of us would have moved primarily to online learning due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which unfortunately is still with us. And so as of March 2020, many persons would have moved to online learning or remote learning to try to maintain the university, the business of the university, which is teaching. And the platform that we use or the learning management system is UTech Online, or the other name for it is Moodle. So Moodle is the generic name, and then each university customizes it and gives it their own personal name. So you will hear the term Moodle or UTech Online being used anonymously. So back in 2020, when most persons would have probably become more familiar with UTech Online, we were at version 3.5, which was fairly outdated. And over the Christmas period, the version would have been upgraded by our LTSU department to version 3.11. So what we want to highlight today are just some of the changes. We're not necessarily going to go into, so we're not going into a lot of the maybe some of the issues that you're having in UTech Online. I will highlight a few things about the Blackboard Collaborate because that was also upgraded, and just want to highlight a few things with that. So this session really is scheduled to last for between an hour to an hour and a half. So by 3:30 we should be out of here. If you do have to leave before that, you can put your email address in the chat and the recording can be sent to you. Of course, as I'm going along, feel free to ask any questions that you have by either raising your hand using the raise hand feature, or you can put your question in the chat. Okay. Now, as it relates to the other features of UTech Online, we will also be having additional training sessions throughout the course of the semester, particularly focusing on creating assessments online. We will also be having additional training sessions on how to utilize the Turnitin software that we have. So you can continue to look out on the broadcaster for those sessions, but we're not going into detail with those issues today because those are, creating assessments, creating quizzes, all those things are sessions by themselves. So today we're really just focusing on the new features for UTech Online, the version 3.11. All right, so good afternoon to everyone who is here. I'm seeing that we currently have 14 participants, 15. So it's good to see everyone here. All right, so at this time, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can see exactly what it is that I'm doing. All right, so you should be seeing my screen shortly. All right, so what is on screen right now is the dashboard of UTech Online, and the dashboard is that first page that you see when you log in. Of course, your login for UTech Online is your normal UTech login. So if you are a full-time member of staff, it will be your UTech domain account, right? So whatever your name is at utech.edu.jm. Of course, for your username, you wouldn't enter the @utech.edu.jm. You would just enter your name and then your user password. If you are a part-time lecturer, then a manual account will have to be created for you. If you have never accessed UTech Online as a part-time lecturer, you can send that request to your program director, who will send that request to the distance learning liaison, who will then communicate with us, and a manual account will be created. So once you get access to UTech Online, the first thing that you will see are all of the courses that you have been assigned to. So for example, if you log on to your dashboard and you're not seeing any courses, then again, send an email through your program director and they will indicate to us which modules you should be added to. And then once that is done, you will see them popping up on your page. So this is an idea of what your page will look like, as you can see here. So the modules that you are assigned to as a teacher is what you will see on the dashboard. So some slight changes here. I think it's just to help with the functionality is that you can now adjust the way you see your courses. So if I click here, you will see, right? So I'm going to just apologize from now. So one of the things that was changed in the upgrade was the layout of the page and the coloring. So what you're seeing here is black text or blue text with a kind of a dark blue overlay. So it's a little bit hard to see, but this says all except removed from view. So basically what this is saying is that you have the option now to choose how you see your courses. You can see all courses, which is probably what you'd want to see. You can see courses in progress, you can see courses in the future, and see courses in past. Now, persons would not really be seeing courses in past because since it's a new system, it's actually a new address. So to get into the old UTech Online, that would be a different website, and that is moodle.archive.utechonline or something like that. So if you need it, you can send me an email. I'm not remembering it. Let me just look to be sure. Right, but so that is how you write. It's moodlearchive.utech.edu.jm. So that is how you would get into the old Moodle. So I'll just put it in the chat. Moodle archive, Moodle, yes, I can spell archive dot utech dot utech.edu.gm. All right, let me just make sure. Moodle archive.utech.edu.gm. All right, so I'm putting that in the chat. So that is how you would access any of your past modules. So what we would have done for this semester is we would have reset modules minus the student data from the last sitting of your module, and that is what would have been carried over to the new system. So because this is a new system, you are not going to actually see any of your past modules. So when you move into summer, the summer session or semester 1, then you'd be able to see past modules. So this just gives you an idea of things that are, so if I start things, notice I have it here, starred. So if I had started a course, then you would see it, right? And so these are my recently accessed courses here. These are the 2 courses on which I teach, right? Okay. So it just gives you an idea of how, so for example, if you have a lot of courses, maybe you want to start the one that is that you most frequently use, right? Okay, I heard a hand. Okay, maybe that was an inadvertent hand. Okay. All right, so I'm just, okay, so these are my courses now, right? And so beside the 3 little dots, I can start this course. So when I click on start this course, it will come up. And if I click, so for example, if you have 10 courses teaching and you want to just start 2 of them, that means that will always come up in your view. You can click start this course. And then for your course overview, you can select the courses that are starred. So that way you'd only see those courses. Okay. So just a little adjustment there. It just makes it a little bit easier. It helps to kind of organize your page. So that way you're not searching all over the place looking for things. All right, so for the purpose of today's demonstration, I'm going to use our Moodle demonstration course, but it is actually the same layout as the other courses. So this is just our dummy course that we use for our training purposes. All right, so the first thing I want to show you as a big change to um, Moodle 3.5 is this feature right here. So it's funny because Miss Peck was off for a year on study leave, and so um, Miss Peck would have been exposed to Moodle 3.11 in the time that she was off. So she was so accustomed to the turn editing button being here that she didn't even recognize that it was different, because that is how far back our versions were. So prior to January, to turn editing on, we would have clicked on the little gear wheel, and we would have clicked on the drop down actions menu, and we would have turned editing on. But one of the improvements that they have made is to put it right here. And this actually makes sense because in terms of the action button, this is one of the most frequently used features as a teacher, right? So instead of having to click and find it at the top, it's right here, big and bold. And of course, we know that we select the turn editing on when we need to make any adjustment to our page, right? So once I do that, then you will see that the page will change and you see all these edit buttons appear. And of course, only persons who have been designated the role as teacher, that is the only person who can make any adjustments to their course page. So if someone has been added as a non-editing teacher, then they will not be able to make any edits to the page. All right. So I want to welcome those who came since we started. I am seeing now 28 persons, so good afternoon. And as I indicated earlier, if you have any questions as I'm going along, feel free to raise your hand to speak, or you can place your question in the chat. All right, so we have dealt with the turn editing on feature, right? And you can see here the edit buttons. All right. One thing that many persons have asked us is, one of the new features is this feature now where you see these markers done options. So basically what this does is a way to keep the students engaged, right? You can help them to know what is important when they mark things as done. But it's a feature that it's customizable. You don't have to maintain it, right? So it would simply mean as a student sees this assignment, they mark it as done. That's all that means. But you can always remove it, and it's very simple to remove. So to remove the completion tracking, you're just going to click on the gear wheel. You're going to select the drop down button. And as I said, the challenge here, the first option here is always the edit settings. And this is the most frequently used option under any of the edit buttons. But as I said, because of the layout as it is right now with the dark writing and the dark blue overlay, it's difficult to see. So this is a request that we have made to LTSU to change, because LTSU is the one who does the technical management of the site. So we are awaiting that change because we do know that it is difficult to read. So what needs to happen here is that either the blue overlay is adjusted or the writing is adjusted to white. Either way, there needs to be a contrast so that you can clearly see, because once you move your icon, your cursor down, right, it's difficult to see the words. But edit settings is at the top. So I'm going to select edit settings, right? And edit settings, most teachers won't really interact with this, but this is where we go to alter the settings of the module, especially when we are resetting for each semester. So you just scroll all the way down until you get to completion tracking. You just select it, and then you see enable completion tracking. And you just click on the arrow and select no, and then select save and display. And you will see that all those mark as done buttons have disappeared. So again, it's optional. If you don't like it, you can always change it. It's just a new feature that comes with the system. So it's up to you if you want to utilize it or not. All right. All right, I'm not seeing any questions at this time, so I'm going to go ahead, Mrs. Ware.
Um, what comes up on the completion tracking automatically? All assignments set. You said you can customize, but what would come up automatically? Let's say I set assignments. Does that come up under the completion tracking, or I have to put in what needs to be reflected there?
Okay, so as it is as a default feature, it would be everything that is on the page. So um, assignments, files, etc. Now, if you wanted to put in completion tracking for yourself, then what you could do is click on the gear wheel, and then where is it now? I'm not seeing it. Click on the, why am I not seeing it? It was right here. Hold on, more. I just saw it this morning and it's, hold on, edit, set, hold on. Let me go back to edit settings. Let me turn back on the completion tracking. No, I think because I turned it off, I'm not seeing the option. So I'm going to turn it back on and then show activity completion conditions. I can say yes. And I'm going to go back and save and display because there was an option. Why am I not seeing it? Oh, it's right here. Wow, I'm very blind.
Yeah.
It's literally the second option. Because I'm like, I know it's there. Okay. So under the edit settings option, there's a completion option. All right. So let me go back. Something is staring you in the face. So I'm going to turn back off the general completion option, completion tracking, save and display. I'm going to go back to my gear wheel. Oh, so you see, it does go away. So, all right, so you see, I just learned something new there. All right, so you have to enable it. If you want to utilize the completion tracking, you have to turn on the feature from the settings, and then you'll get the option to customize. So I'm going to turn it back on, save and display, and then you'll see it come up because I know I wasn't seeing it. Okay, so once you enable it in the settings overall, then you can customize it using the course completion option under the gear wheel. So here now is where you can determine what you want the completion to look like. So under completion requirements, it says course is complete and all conditions are met, or course is complete when any of the conditions are met. So you can decide how you want to customize it. And then you just scroll down now. So under condition activity completion, you would indicate what you consider to be important. So if you want to click the assignments or the files, or you want to ensure that they read the syllabus, so you can customize it to what you want, but you have to enable it from the settings, right? And then you see the condition requires here all activities, all selected activities to be complete or any. So you decide how you want your completion to be done, whether it's all of the activities that you have indicated or any of them, right? Completion of other courses, you wouldn't really, you'd only put this there if it was a situation where a course was a prerequisite. So I wouldn't really recommend utilizing that. You can put a date completion. So the students should complete a certain activity by a particular date. Completion enrollment duration. So these, I don't think, these are not really generally relevant. Manual self-completion, enable this. So this is where the students would click on it manually. So the primary thing that you'd be looking for, Mrs. Ware, is this activity completion here, where you would indicate, so just by setting the activity, the course completion, generally everything will be tagged as something that needs to be completed. And so by going in and doing a customization, only those things that you have indicated will come up as things that students need to do in terms of course completion. And then you can set it if you want it to be all of those things that should be done or any of them. Does that help, Mrs.
Okay,
Ray?
thank you. Yeah, man. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Is a
You're
new
welcome.
button, so I'm trying to
Yes,
understand
yes,
it.
man. No problem. Not a problem. That's why we're here. Not a problem. All right. So I'm seeing some email addresses in the chat. Yes. So as I indicated to the persons who came earlier, if you're unable to stay for the duration of the session, or as Mr. Anderson is saying, you're having some unstable internet, then you can always put your email address in the chat and the recording will be sent to you tomorrow morning. All right, so that deals with the completion tracking there. So the first, if you want to utilize that feature, you would enable it overall in the settings by clicking on the edit settings icon, scrolling down. Well, it's automatically enabled, but if you want to disable it, you would just select the completion tracking and then select no. All right, so that takes us to the completion tracking. All right, so I have to be a good supervisor, you know. Miss Peck did a list. This is her training, you know, so she did a list. So I have to make sure that I'm following her list accordingly. All right. So one of the new features now that we are seeing with this new version 3.11 is when you create an assignment or a quiz and you enable dates, it actually comes up as on the page here. So you're seeing this here. So I will just create one for you so you can see. So prior to now, we would have just seen the name of the assignment. We would not have seen this open and due, right? So again, this is good because it just helps the student to be more accountable and they can't say, boy, miss, I didn't know. Because prior to this, what we would always recommend is that you put the due date in the name of the assignment itself. But now you don't necessarily have to do that because the system will actually show it for you. So I'll just demonstrate that quickly. So of course, I would have turned editing on. I'm going to select add an activity or resource. I'm going to select add an assignment. I'll come back to that page shortly. I'm going to call this test assignment. Right? I can put my instructions in the description box if I like. Right? So I can say instructions here. I can also display descriptions on course page by enabling that field. And then this is where now I can put my dates. So I can allow submissions from today. I can say it's due on February. I'm going to say February 3rd. Right? It's always good to give your students to the end of the day to submit the assignment. So you always have to remember the default time is set to 0. Right? And then I can click save and return to course. Oh, hold on, what did I do here now? Okay, I'm just going to change this. So what happened here is that there's a feature where the system will remind you to grade by. It was automatically set for the 3rd of February, but which makes sense. Remind me to grade by date cannot be earlier than the due date. So this is a feature that you can remove by unchecking that box if you don't need that reminder. All right, so I'm going to save and return to course. And that's one of the good things about the system. If you do anything that's incorrect in terms of the settings, then it's not going to allow you to go forward. So here is my assignment that I created. You see the name. It was open on this day, and it's due on this day. So this really, and these are the instructions that I put, excuse me, in the description box. So I think this really helps the students. It keeps them accountable because they can they don't have to click to see when it is due. It comes up right away, and I think that's a very good feature. All right, so the way you create your assignments and your quizzes remains the same. So it's not as if you would have normally put in your dates. It's just that they would not have. What is new here is that they did not normally show up on the course page like that. So again, I think that's a very good feature. And I think Moodle, what they try to do is over time, as they listen to complaints from their, stakeholders, they have tried to make these adjustments. All right, so now I'm going to select add an activity or resource. So this is where, so if I just turn editing off, right, so we know that turning editing on is what allows a teacher to make any adjustments to the page. So to make any adjustments to the page, you'd select the turn editing on button. You scroll down to the end of your section, and then you select add an activity or resource. So let us say I want to add an activity or resource here. I select it. So this now is new. This layout here is new in this version. So normally for 3.5, we would have seen all of these things in text on the left, and then you would have had to scroll down to select what you want. So now it comes up like this, and it comes up in 3 options. So these are all of the options that are the plugins for UTech Online currently, or you can select them by activities. Or you can select them by resources, right? So you have activities, separate. Again, these are things that you would have already been familiar with: the assignment feature, the attendance button, the chat icon, the collaborate link, games, quizzes, Turnitin assignment, and then, or you can select resources, and resources are book, file, folder, label, page, URL. So now a new feature in addition to the layout. So let us say that one of the things that you frequently utilize is the assignment. So what you can do, similar to the star option on the dashboard, is you can star the frequently used tools. So by starring it, then you notice you see a tab now that says star. So let us say I utilize the assignment tool. I also utilize the quiz tool. I also utilize maybe the file option. So I am going to now look, and under the Start tab, instead of having to wade through all of those activities and resources, I can just simply click on the Start tab, and I can, it's almost like a shortcut to get to these things, right? So if I wanted to create an assignment, I would just double click on it, and the layout remains the same, or the template remains the same for how you would actually create an assignment. All right. All right, so Mrs. Ware is saying not seeing the completion tracking option. Right, so remember, as Ms. Peck is saying, you have to click Edit Settings, which is the first option. Scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, and then you will see the completion tracking option. So by default, it should be on. And then if it's already on, the completion tracking option will be second underneath the Edit Settings under the gear wheel. All right, any other questions at this time?
Still not seeing, but I'll talk about that with one of you outside of, not to hold up the workshop.
Okay, not a problem. Just ensure that you are, in fact, you have editing on. So you have to turn on editing in order to get to see
Yes,
the
I
gear
have
wheel.
edit on. I have on editing on. I go to the gear, and then after that, I'm seeing filters, gradebook, backup, import, etc.
No, man. So when you click on the gear, all right, let me go back. So you would click on the, so you turn, all right, so I have editing on. So when you click on the little icon, then
Yes.
right at the top, you see edit settings. So you're not clicking, you just, it's the very top, it's the very first option, you see edit settings,
Right, right.
right?
But what
So
I'm
once,
seeing for,
so once you click on that, are you seeing
I'll look
edit?
at it.
Because I'm saying you should be seeing edit core
I don't
settings.
want to detract. I don't want to detract from the learning. So
Okay.
continue.
All right, not a problem. All right, so we saw the new way of the new layout for adding an activity or resource, and we saw how we can star or frequently use options so it's easier to find them. And so the method of creation for whether it is assignments or tests remains the same. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to show you now, one of the new features is that when you are creating an essay for a student, you can now insert word limits, which is very helpful. Yes, Miss Dixon, you can put your email address in the chat, and then we can send it to you. Miss Beck will send it to you by tomorrow. All right, so you can create a quiz with the essay feature where you can actually insert a word limit. So that's a new feature. So with my editing turned on, I'm going to select add an activity or resource, right? I already have quiz starred, so it comes up under my starred tab. So I'm going to select quiz, right? I'm just going to create a, um, a test quiz option. All right. So of course the normal setup remains in terms of the time. Right, so I'm not really focusing on that so much right now. I'm just showing you the essay portion. So I'm just going to click save and display. So of course, you know, whenever you're creating a quiz, you first have to create your template and then you would insert your questions after that. Obviously, this is for demonstration purposes, but normally if you're creating a quiz for an assessment purpose, we would recommend that you utilize the feature of the question bank. And as I said, we will be having sessions coming up in a few weeks. As you know, persons will be preparing for midterm and final assessments, showing you in detail how to create your quizzes. So I'm just going to edit quiz, and I'm just going to add a new question. So I'm going to select essay. All right, right. So I would have all of the boxes that are where's exclamation mark in a red circle. Those are the required fields, right? So if I just say test, test, right? Default mark is 1. So this is what I want to show you here. So this is the section that is new. And again, this is not required. So if you notice, unlike these sections that have the exclamation mark in red, that those fields are required. So this is not a required field, but it is a new field that you can utilize. So for example, if you have an essay and you say at minimum it should be 100 words, but at maximum it should be 500, right? And of course, to any notice if I don't click the enable box, I'm not able to type in it. So you have to click the box in order to enter your number. And again, this is helpful for your students. So that means that if the student, say you put in this limit and the student writes 50 words, then the student will not be able to complete the assignment because it's going to tell them that they have not reached the minimum word limit. And for your students who love to write, if they try to go beyond the word limit, it's not going to allow them either, right? So this is just a new feature that I think is helpful for both students and lecturers, and it helps to guide students. You know, some students, even if it's a one-word answer that is required, they write in a whole paragraph. So this really helps to provide them some guidance in terms of what is required. And again, it's not a required field, it's optional. So if you don't want to utilize this and you want to leave it open, then you can also do that. All right, so you would just save changes and that would be enabled. All right, any questions about that? Okay, I'm seeing Mrs. Headley Smith
I'm
is
sorry, I
asking.
was about,
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm looking for the to raise my hand feature. Yes, it's here now, sorry. Just a quick question. Where on this platform is the link to Turnitin?
Turn it in, sure, not a problem. All right, so as it relates to Turnitin, you know that we did have some sessions last year with the persons from Turnitin. There is also a webinar that's coming up in February, so I can put in a plug for that. So we'll be sending that out on the broadcaster shortly, and we will also be having sessions about Turnitin. And one of the things, we had a meeting with them last week, and they really want to encourage greater utilization of Turnitin. So thank you for that question, Dr. Sinclair Mirage. So to create a Turnitin assignment, you're going to select add an activity or resource. Right, it's not starred, so if you don't know if it's an activity or resource, you can select all, right? The resources are listed alphabetically. So if I scroll down, and I would see Turnitin assignment 2, right? So if it's something that you want to utilize frequently, you can star it. So it will come under your starred tab, and you would just select Turnitin assignment 2. Okay, I'm not sure why it's not coming up. Why is it not coming up? Let me just see. Okay, label came up. All right, so this is generally how you would add it. Let me just go back and see if it's something that I am not doing right, which is entirely possible. Okay, I think I was just moving too fast. This page. Yes, that's, no, I think I was just moving too fast. There it is. So it worked quite fine. I was just being impatient, which is my normal MO. It was the page wasn't moving fast enough for me. So I had to wait, right? So I double clicked it, I waited, and then you would just go through to create your assignment. So, you give it your name and then you set up your conditions, etc. Right? So again, a plug for the Turnitin, you will be seeing that flyer come out. They really wanted to encourage us to encourage as many of our staff members as possible to utilize the Turnitin, because even though we have made a significant jump in terms of utilizing the resource over the past 2 years, we're still under what um, they would recommend in terms of a good utilization. And of course, it's a good tool to utilize. We know that Turnitin helps to detect plagiarism, and more importantly, it helps to improve academic integrity. And so it's not just about catching students doing something wrong. It's about helping them to improve their overall work. Um, and as you know, we do have a feature on UTech Online where the students are able to submit their work on Turnitin to take note of the statistic before submitting to you. So we have also had sessions with the students. We had those sessions last semester, and we will also be having repeat sessions this semester, trying to encourage students to utilize the Turnitin as well. Does that answer your question, Dr. Maraj?
Yes, partially, but I think I'll await the other training. But I was just curious to know if when the assignment is submitted on the Moodle platform, is it that we just click on this button and it moves to Turnitin, or is it that we have to um, cut and paste the assignment or the Word document into Turnitin? I'm not sure of how it works.
Okay, no man. So this is an actual Turnitin plugin. So it has the feedback studio option. So once a student submits, so you're going to create. So basically what you're doing, you're creating a Turnitin Dropbox. So there are two ways to utilize Turnitin. You can utilize a native Turnitin, which is turnitin.com, where you would have to pay to have access to that, or you utilize Turnitin as a plugin in UTech Online, because we have already paid for that. So you wouldn't need to do anything externally. So once you set up the Turnitin assignment, then the students, you will get the feedback. So you will get the statistic. All the features of Turnitin are embedded within this Turnitin plugin. So you wouldn't have
Okay,
to do anything externally.
all right. Thanks for that clarification.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, so I'm going back to my course page. All right, so another thing that you can do is control. A new feature is where students have the option of controlling the audio video playback rates. So prior to, we're not even sure which version it is because we're about 6 versions behind, but somewhere between 3.5 and 3.11, that was a new feature that they created. So if you download a video, so we have a video here. Let me see if there's any other video uploaded. I think I would need to get oh, Miss Peck had done this last week. All right, so there's Miss Peck. And so this is a video that she uploaded last week, so I don't need to re-upload. So if I press play,
Hi everyone, my name is Michaela
right,
Peck and I am
you
a
see the
student in
option
the MA
here,
in TLS program.
1x, and this is what I want to show. So this is the new feature here, is that students are able to adjust the speed of the video. They can do it faster, or they can do it slower, right? So that is a new feature of UTech Online. And again, it's helpful to students because sometimes when you're watching a video, depending, especially if it's a video that you have done, some persons speak very fast, some persons speak very slowly, or the accent is too heavy or whatever. And so sometimes you listen and you're trying to figure out what's happening. So this allows you to slow down the video and you can choose the speed. You can speed it up or you can slow it down. So this just helps to, what it is, it just helps to improve the experience of the student by being able to customize the speed of the video. And this is for both audio and video. So if you upload an audio file, it will be the same. So if you notice here that this video was actually created on the site by Miss Peck, and she did so using a label. So the site allows you to create videos or audio clips for up to 2 minutes. And those are helpful as brief introductions for your students, or you can use it to introduce a unit. Or you can import a video from YouTube or an audio clip from somewhere else. All right, we already looked at the customizable activity chooser. All right, so now we're going to look at the forum enhancements. Well, before I do that, let me just spend a little time talking about Blackboard Collaborate. So Blackboard Collaborate, as we know, is a synchronous tool that we have been utilizing, I think, for about 3 years now. Most persons prior to COVID would not have really utilized Blackboard Collaborate much, but of course, due to the health crisis, many of us are utilizing these synchronous tools, whether Collaborate or Zoom, to maintain our live class sessions. As it is right now, we are not currently able to utilize Zoom in the way that we do Blackboard Collaborate. I know it is something that was explored. The university is also now pursuing the utilization of Microsoft 365, which would allow for the use of Microsoft Teams as another option. So that should be coming on stream soon. So we may actually phase out the use of Blackboard Collaborate. But until that comes on stream, we will continue to utilize Blackboard Collaborate. And the advantage of Blackboard Collaborate over Zoom is that there's no cost to you as a lecturer. And currently, I think there are only 50 Zoom licenses across university. So even if your faculty may have one or two, it's not enough to utilize for everyone, for all classes. So if you want to use Zoom, at this time, it would be something that you'd have to pay for yourself, because as we know, the free version of Zoom is only 45 minutes, and that's really insufficient for our purposes. So I'm just going to go through the setup with Blackboard Collaborate and show you 2 features on it. So again, I would have turned editing on. I'm going to select add an activity or resource, right? Again, I can go to all, and you can see the collaborate icon there, or it would have been under activities. So I can double click, and this time I'm going to be patient and wait. All right, so you can see that the session name is a required field, right? So I'm going to call mine BBC test. Now, when you are creating your sessions, I always recommend that in the description, especially if you have multiple classes, that you put your class schedule. Also, if it's a large module where there are multiple lecturers, it's always good to put the name of the lecturer in the field. So I can put K. Anderson, right? And I can put my class schedule here. So I can say 3 to 5 p.m. Thursday, 8 to 10, and Friday, 2 to 4, right? And I can also display the description on the course page, so it's easy for students to see. All right. So for the start time, I can start it now. So earlier this week, we had an issue where the server time was off by half an hour. So what it meant was that if persons had set their class for a specific time, say they had set it for today at 3 o'clock, when they went to log on at 3, the join session button was not there because the server time was off. So the server time was being read as 2:30. So that's why there were some issues earlier this week, but that has now been rectified. So a person should not have that problem. So, but one of the things that I suggest when you are creating your Blackboard sessions at the beginning of the semester is not to set it for a particular time, just to leave it for duration of course. Because what this does is it allows you to utilize your room, and you don't, especially if you have, so for example, here in my description, I would have had 3 classes. I would not need to then go ahead and create a class session for each time. I can just create one session, leave it open for duration, of course, and that way you won't have to be creating a link every week, or you won't have to create 3 separate links. Now you can also allow collaborate guest access. So for example, if you have two, you can use it for 2 reasons. One, if sometimes students have issues and they're not able to log on to UTech Online just yet, and they don't want to miss the class, and they're asking you for the guest link, you can create a guest link and send it to them. Or if you have a guest lecturer coming in, you can also send them this link. So this way, persons who are external to UTech Online will be able to access your session. All right, I think I heard a session, not a session, a hand. All right, Ms. Dillon, go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. Well, I was waiting to see if you would mention it. At the end, when you save and you go back to the main page, I notice it still has the date on it when you originally set up the BBC session. Is there any way to remove that, or will it always be there? Like, for example, January 20th, when I set it up at 3 p.m. Is there a way to
Yes.
remove that?
No, that seems to be a feature that because that wasn't there before. I'm not sure why they thought that was a good feature, because I don't like it either, because it can be a little bit confusing to the students. So no, there doesn't seem to be any way to change that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Mrs. Ware is asking about notice. Yes, so that Microsoft Teams, that would come from LTSU in terms of the setup and the training. And the persons who want the recording, yes, once your email address is in the chat, we can go ahead and send that to you. Yes, Mrs. Ware. So once we get notification about the access for 365 and Teams, training sessions will be arranged, and those will be, multiple sessions over time. All right. So going back to this now. So this now is a new feature here, this setting, instructor settings. This was not on the previous version of Blackboard Collaborate. And this is the bane of, of our troubles, has been the bane of our troubles for the past week. So as I indicated, this is a new setting. And for some reason, I'm not sure why, on the instructor settings, these are not enabled. What this means is, if these are not enabled, then when the students log on, they cannot open their camera and they cannot open their microphone. So what I would recommend that you do once you're setting up your microphone, you would not your microphone, your Blackboard Collaborate setting, you go in and you make this adjustment, and you try to do it before the class. Why do I say that? Because I had a personal experience myself where I had a class and it was not enabled. When the students came on, they could not share their audio. They did not see the button, the microphone option, and I enabled it, but for whatever reason, when it is enabled, it does not kick in right away. Why does that happen? I don't know. We are trying to get it fixed. We have made the request, but we have not received a reply as yet. So until then, just go in and enable that. Ensure that all of these are enabled, so that way your students won't have any issues. But I did know though that within an hour's time, or 2 hours time really, when I had my next class, that the students were able to enable their microphone. So if you're having that challenge, or you know of someone who's having that challenge, just go through the settings to ensure that all those are enabled. All right, so this is what Mrs. Dillon was making reference to here. For some reason, when the session is created, it keeps the time and the setting of when you created the link as a part of the description. Why it does that, I'm not sure. But you notice here I enabled I enabled the description, which shows my class session. So this is what I would put, just to, because some students may see this and think that the class is today at 2:30 or, January 20 at 2:30, which is not the case. So this is just a feature that I'm not seeing a way to remove. All right. Mrs. Lewin Gordon, your hand is up. Go ahead, please.
Hi, I think I missed it. I was asking about the link. Where would the link for the class be? Because I have a lot of students that call, so they don't see the classes come up on their Moodle, but they do see several links. Is there any way you can show me that, or is that this just specific to your class here?
Okay, I'm not sure if I understand the question. Where you're saying that they are seeing specific links. Is this a class with multiple lecturers?
All right, no. When they log into their Moodle, all of their classes aren't up. But however, like say they search for a class. They say they search for the BCC or BBC, whatever you have it as. They will see several links for several for several lecturers. Sometimes they don't know what is theirs. How would they be able to know what is? They just click on one and try to get in.
Okay, so if I'm understanding you, the students are logged into a module on UTech Online, correct?
They logged into Moodle, but
Mm-hmm.
their classes have not updated on their log, if that makes sense.
Okay, I think we're talking about two different things here. All right, so the students, the only way they will get access to the Blackboard Collaborate link is when they get access to the module on UTech Online. So if you're making reference to their student portal, they're not going to get the link outside of logging on to UTech Online. So I'm not sure when you're saying that they're seeing a lot of different links because the
All right.
only Mhm.
Because what I'm saying is that I have students and complain that the modules aren't coming up for them. But like they finish the registration, but when they go into Moodle, they're not seeing their list of modules that they selected on it. How would they get access to it? Because the only other thing they've seen was there if they went out to try and search for it, but then they don't know which class they are in. If
Okay,
they
no, so
have that
you're
issue.
right. So that's a different issue. So that's not in relation to the Blackboard Collaborate. So what you're speaking about there is the process of auto enrollment. So once a student makes a selection on their student portal, I think it takes, well, first they would have had to have paid their ECD. They'd have to wait for 48 hours for that to clear them. Then they would select their modules. Then once a module is selected, if it is offered on UTech Online, then the process of auto enrollment would enroll them in their module. If the module is not offered on UTech Online, then you can appreciate and there's nothing for them to auto enroll them in. So the auto enrollment does run 3 times a day. So it runs 6 a.m., noon, and 5:30 p.m. So for example, if a student makes the selection at 8 p.m., then that student would not see their module until the following day. Then once they get onto their module now, then they would be able to see the links that the lecturer has set up. So if the lecturer is utilizing Blackboard Collaborate, or if the lecturer is using Zoom, then once that information is provided on the module, then the student would then be able to select the individual module to attend their class.
Okay, but let's say a 48 hours has passed since they have been registered. Who would they
Mm-hmm.
contact if
Okay,
they're
so
not seeing anything?
right, so one of the first things I would do is two things. One, the student can actually confirm, ensure that they have done the 10-step process, because we have seen many situations of students who have made the selection but they did not complete the 10-step process, and until the student completes the 10-step process on their student portal, then it's not going to actually um, list them, they're not going to be eligible for auto enrollment. So the first thing is the student has to ensure that they have done everything on the student portal. That's the first thing. Then if they have confirmed that they have done everything and the 24 hours has passed, then they would need to confirm with their faculty if the module in question is being offered on UTech Online. For some faculties, some lecturers utilize other LMSs. They use Google Suite, Google Classroom, they use Schoology, they use Canva, they use Canvas, they use lots of different things. And the only LMS that is tied to the auto enrollment is UTech Online. So if a lecturer is hosting a class somewhere else, then there's no auto enrollment to take place for that class.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, so going back now, so you can see the link that I have created. Now, sometimes if you are in a class and there are multiple occurrences. So let us say that I have created a class. Let's pretend that this is a large class that has multiple occurrences, and this just happened just today, and I had to assist someone with it. So the lecturer had a class today at 1 o'clock, and she said to me that students are all over the place. Why are they all over the place? Because students are auto-enrolled based on the occurrence that they have selected. So if at Thursday 1 o'clock you have two occurrences coming in, let us say OMD and UE1 for instance. By default, most of the Blackboard Collaborate sessions settings will be set to this here. So you see this little icon here, it says visible groups. So what this means is that if it is set to this, when the lecturer clicks on it, then the lecturer will have to select which occurrence to join to ensure that you and the students are in the same room. So if you have two occurrences happening at the same time, you can't join two occurrences at the same time. You have to only join one. So the easy solution to that is just to ensure that your setting for Blackboard Collaborate is set to no groups. So how do you do that? You just put your cursor on the little icon here. So the first thing you see here is visible groups. You click on it, the next thing you see, let me go back. So you see separate groups, which is not what you want. You'll see visible groups, which is not what you want. And then you'll see no groups, which is what you want. Because when you see no groups, what it means is that you don't have to select any occurrence. Everyone will be in the same room and you won't have any of those issues. So when that lecturer contacted me, I was able to change it quickly. She came home, everybody joined back and everything was good. All right, so those are the two main issues that we have seen experience a lot this week. The main thing is that the microphone, and as I showed you, the instructor setting is a new setting, and for many of the sessions it is disabled automatically. And so once you enable it, as I said, it doesn't kick in right away, but usually within an hour or so it will kick in. And then the feature of the no groups to ensure that you don't have a situation where your classes are splintered across occurrences. All right, Mrs. Ware, go ahead, please.
And just like you have on the screen, you have a class Monday 3 to 5, Thursday 8 to 10, Friday 2 to 4. I still go on that edit button. Would I go on that edit button and create the separate groupings?
I'm hearing you. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what my question is. Because three different classes or occurrences. Monday 3 to 5, Thursday 8 to 10, Friday 2 to 4.
Oh, you're talking about the restrict access option.
Right, I'm looking at your setting up BBC for these three different class types. So how do I set it up for Monday 3 to 5, Thursday 8 to 10, Friday 2 to 4?
Right, that's what I'm saying. You don't, what I'm saying is you don't have to set it up individually like that. You can just leave it open for duration, of course, so that way you can go in at any time. So you wouldn't have to, because if you wanted to have three separate sessions for each class, then you'd have to set it up individually. Otherwise, you can just leave it for duration, of course, so that way you wouldn't have to have three links.
Okay, so that means the students can join any of the class types.
Right, if you left it open, yes. If you don't want to leave it open, you can just create three separate links, and then you can restrict the access to the occurrence, to the specific occurrences.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, question, Mrs. Ware,
Yes,
is it
Mr.
that you want to restrict who joins the class?
Remember, persons coming, they are registered on different days. So you want to keep a track for group work, etc., and accountability in an event that you did something in one class that may not have occurred in another. based on sometimes assignments to reinforce, etc. So you kind
Right,
of
right.
manage your groups to make sure that you can track who is coming in. Because if you leave it open, you're going to have to keep a track as to which student belongs to which day or occurrence, as opposed to those coming in on a Monday. You already know they're already registered, etc. So it's just working that out.
Right. So if you create 3 different collaborate sessions, the only thing I would add to that is to add the group restriction setting so that you can limit the access to each day based on the occurrence of the student.
Okay.
We can always speak about that some more another time.
Yeah, man.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Grant. And for those who don't know, Mr. Grant is also another valuable member of the ODL staff. He is the educational technology specialist. So we thank him for taking the time to come out today. So I will just show that what he just mentioned about the restrictions. So if you go to restrict access and then you select add restriction, I don't have any groups here, so I can't show it. But if I had a group, you would see groups and then you'd be able to restrict it by the groups. So as Mr. Grant was saying, based on the concern that Mrs. Ware had, if you had different class sessions and you definitely wanted to ensure that persons are not able to attend a class that is not theirs based on their timetable, then you can create a separate session per class and then restrict it to that occurrence only. If you have 2 occurrences, you can restrict it to both occurrences. Just ensure that the restriction says students must match any and not all. So once you are doing more than one restriction, you have to change the little tab at the top to any and not all. Okay. All right. So this is Mr. Grant was also reminding me of this. Thank you, Mr. Grant. In addition to the icon that you can change beside the edit option, under the common module settings, under group mode, the 3 options are here: no group, separate groups, and visible groups. So when you're setting it up, you can just ensure that it is set to no groups as well. All right, so thank you for that. Okay, Mrs. Smith, go ahead, please. Your hand is up.
Yes, good afternoon. Could you guide me through a similar procedure with respect to like a discussion forums? I have 2 groups and I would like the discussion forum to be done in such a way where group 1, for example, they would answer in that particular, it's the same question, same discussion question, but I'd like answers for that particular discussion question to be done by group 1, separate from group 2, so that when I'm marking, it's a little easier to assess. Could you guide me through that?
Okay.
Because I was trying just now and, well, the other day, and I wasn't getting very far.
Right. So basically, you would just create 2 forums and then restrict each one to each group. Can you give me the title of the module code for your course, since I don't have any
Oh,
groups
I'd have to
here?
create 2 different discussions. I think that's a
Yes.
challenge. I was trying to do it.
Yes.
I had one, but I was trying to see how I could set it
Right.
up.
What times if you have the thing with the restriction is it has to be either both or it's either both or none. No, not both or none. It's either any or all. So that means that if you put 2 occurrences, it is, if you say all, it would mean that the students would have to be in both occurrences, which wouldn't work because a student is only in one occurrence. And then if you put any, then it would defeat the purpose of what you want to achieve.
Right. So
Because
you're
that means
saying
that
I would need to create 2, saying on the
you need
same
to,
Moodle page,
yes,
just create 2 module page, create 2 different discussion for. Ah,
correct, correct. Create 2 and then restrict the access accordingly. So you'd restrict one to one group and one to the other group.
all right. So you can just show me how. All right. So I have one now that's done.
Mm-hmm.
So when I
You want me
click
to
on,
restrict
yes,
access?
yes.
Click on restrict access and then click
I'm
on
not seeing
group.
that option.
Or hold on one second. What's your module code?
Three
And
zero
actually
one
this
zero.
this actually doesn't take us off course because I was actually going to show something about the forum. So this actually is helpful. So I just allow for my page to come up. I think in this 21st century that we live in, slow internet is probably one of the worst things that you can experience. And when you add onto it a slow laptop, it makes you want to scream. All right, but this laptop is not slow. My personal laptop is much slower, so I've learned to be patient, even though I often want to throw it through the roof. All right, so it's still spinning. Yeah, so the persons who came late or who would like to get a copy of the recording, please ensure that your email address is in the chat so that we can send the recording to you. All right, you will see coming from Miss Peck because this is her session. I am just helping out for her today because she's not so well. All right, give me that module code again, please.
Oh, sorry, I had muted again. LLB
Sure.
3010.
All right. Family law. Okay. All right. So of course I would have turned editing on. All right. So this is the forum that you want to. What is family law?
Right, and then there are others, but you could just demonstrate with this one, and then.
All right. So So to create a forum, normal you select add an activity or resource, and you create your forum. You can give it a name. All right. So we'd have done that creation already. So under the edit option, but you know what, I'm thinking something here. Mr. Grant, let me see something. Let me look at the participants. Mr. Grant, are you still with us? See, he's now regretting that he spoke, you know. Because I'm just seeing the separate group option. So I just want to see something here. If I leave it on separate groups, I want to log in as a participant. Let me do an experiment here. So I'm going to log in as a student. He's in this occurrence. But I won't be able to see what I want to see. In other words, what I want to see is if you leave it as separate groups, will you be able to do what you want to do without creating another one?
Right.
All right, I'll mull over that in a minute. But the way to restrict the access is you would select edit settings, select restrict access, select add restriction, and then select group. And then these are the occurrences. So you would select your occurrence. So let us say you would select OE1, then you select another occurrence, group, and you select OM1. So this is what I'm saying here. If I say students must match all, no student would be able to participate because no student would be in two occurrences. So whenever
Right.
you're restricting access to multiple occurrences, you have to ensure that you select any. Now, the thing though no is that, I'm answering my own question in my head. If you leave the option as separate groups, you'll be able to get what you want, because what it means is that only the students in OE1 would be able to see the other persons in OE1, and the persons in OM1 would only be able to see the persons in OM1. Whereas if you remove the grouping option, then everybody would be able to see everyone. So I think you should be able to,
So I
you
wouldn't need to
should
do
be
this
able,
that you're showing now. Just go from the.
no man, so you would still need to, because there are multiple occurrences. So unless is it that you want all of the occurrences to get access to this forum?
But segregate the responses. So I was hoping to have one forum, but as you
Uh-huh.
said, so those in one occurrence, they will have their discussions amongst themselves, and those in the other occurrence will have their discussion amongst themselves.
Okay, so but it's all the occurrences in the group to be able to access it.
Yes.
Okay, so if that's the case, then you're not. In other words, you'd only restrict access. So the restrict access feature is really when you want to say you have 10 occurrences in the entire class, and you want, let us say, only two of them are yours. And so whatever activity you're creating, whether an assignment or a quiz or whatever, you want to restrict it to just your students alone. But if all of the occurrences
Oh,
belong to you, right, then you wouldn't have to do that. So that's really the
okay.
only time that you would use the restrict access option. So what you can do though, um, you can keep it as it is in terms of the Let me go back. You can keep it as it is in terms of the separate group option. So you can see the little icon there. And even in terms of the setup, let me go back to the settings. Under the common module settings, there, I keep clicking on wrong things. Okay, here we go. Under the edit settings option, stop that. Why do I keep clicking on other things? Okay, here we go. Under the common module settings, under the group mode, it's set to separate groups. And if you're not sure what that means, you can click on this. So separate groups means each group member can only see their own group and others are invisible. Visible group means each group member works in their own groups but can also see other groups. So based on what you want, that sounds like the separate groups. So it's already set to separate groups, so you would just leave that there. So that way students can only see people in their group. And if you wanted to leave it open, you would change it to no groups.
I had done that by clicking the, what do you call that now, the little person.
The little, yes, the little person there, yes. Right, so, and the feature that I said I wanted to show you was a new feature now within the forum is that you can star a discussion. So for example, let us say you wanted to star a thread that you started. You can click on the star feature, and so it would always come up at the top. So again, the star feature, you can see that they have used it on the dashboard, they have used it in the activities and resources, and they have used it here. And basically what it does, it just gives you the feature where you can see what you have started at the top instead of having to scroll through multiple things. So that's what I wanted to show you with regards to the forum. All right, so we're going back now to our course, our Moodle demonstration course.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. All right, so I'm going through Miss Peck's list here. Our media integration, students can now attach images or record sound or video when answering essay type questions. So again, that's a new feature there. So whereas before, you as a lecturer, you would be able to upload a video clip or an audio clip for them to listen to as a part of their response. That is something that they can do now in their response. But that is something I want to caution against using because as we know, right, we don't live in a first world country where the internet is just hopping, right? Students can often have internet challenges depending on where they're living, you know, if we have heavy rainfall. So I would, if you're using something for formative assessment, then yes, I would recommend the use of audio or video, right? Both ways. But if it's for a summative assessment, you know, a mid-semester or final exam, I would not necessarily recommend the use of that because you would not want to disenfranchise a student who would not be able to hear an audio or a video clip as a part of a question, because that would be, you know, that would be unfair because we know that internet varies, especially sometimes if you live in a hilly area or just some rural area. So the feature is there, but just be mindful of how you utilize it. All right. I heard a hand. Mrs. Anderson Chong, go ahead, please.
Hi, as it relates to the audio, what is the size limit on them? Is it remains the same, or do we now have more space to upload larger files?
All right, let me take a look. I don't know that offhand. I don't know of us getting additional space to upload. And I think even when we upload audio and video files, you have to be very careful because files take up a lot of space and there's a limit on the amount of space. So for example, some of the issues that we had even as we were trying to reset modules this semester is that some of the modules we were not able to reset because lecturers had uploaded so many files that we weren't able. So what I would recommend that you do is instead of uploading an audio or video file directly to your page, just upload the links. They can upload the file to YouTube or another hosting site and then just insert the link to the actual file itself. But when you upload a lot of videos and audio files directly to the page, it really impacts the system overall. So I would discourage the uploading of videos and files and audio files directly to the site.
Okay, thanks, because we were utilizing that, and yes, we did have challenges, which is why I was
Right,
asking.
right.
All right,
Yeah,
thanks for that.
definitely. Sure, you're
Camilla,
welcome.
I
Yes, go
think
ahead,
to
Miss Beck.
use the edit settings option, you'll be able to see, but I think it's 1 GB per course. But the edit
Mm-hmm.
settings for the course shows that is what determines the maximum amount of space you have in each course.
Mm-hmm. Right. Thank you for that, Miss Peck. And as we know that those some of those videos are very large, so we really don't want to have a situation. So it's 5 gigs
Oh,
now.
thanks.
Yes, five
Oh,
gigs.
It's 5 gigs
Yes, but
now.
don't tell anybody that, right? Don't tell anybody
Well, we're gonna try. You know that we have quite a bit of activities that we give our students to record stuff, and we for our final exams, the students are required to upload a video and audio of themselves, all the students. You know, so I'm hoping that we won't have a problem this time around. If not, we'll sort it out, but we still want to try to see what happens.
Right. So the thing though is that if the students upload it as an assignment, Miss Peck, Mr. Grant gone. You see, because I call him Mr. Grant, he's gone. Um, correct me if I'm wrong, Miss Peck. When we are resetting, we remove students' work.
right, right.
Right.
Yep.
So it wouldn't impact. So it wouldn't. So even if they uploaded videos, it wouldn't impact the size of the course itself.
Okay, well that's
Right. So it's
fine. That's not a
uploads that the
problem.
lecturers make to the course, file uploads made to the course by the lecturer, not
Directly. Right.
students,
Oh,
is
okay.
right.
Right. Right. So
Okay.
students' work is fine, but as it relates to
Okay,
videos
what
that
we are
you
uploading.
upload,
Okay,
yeah,
great.
that's a problem. Yes.
Great. Okay.
Okay. All right. So they have given us a little bit more space, but we're not to abuse it. All right. All right. So the last thing now is the H5P, right? And so the H5P is not necessarily a new feature, but it's something that many persons don't necessarily utilize. I don't know how many persons will really utilize it, but it's just to be aware of what it is. And so you can, if you're not clear on it, you can always go and do some reading, right? So basically, it's a tool that allows you to integrate files, right? So you can, if you have a file, something, you can always integrate it. So this is now something that we're not necessarily going to take a lot of time to go through, but it's something that you can read up on your own. So it allows you to download, embed things.
Or
So
call
very
you
interactive,
or send an email.
very interactive tool, right? So sometimes, our LMS is quite powerful. One thing that I will even share, even as we are wrapping up here, is I don't know if you have ever seen those courses where persons use a PowerPoint and it is very exciting. When they look at it, it's very interactive. It's not in the normal PowerPoint feature. That's what they call a SCORM. And even that can be created from our page. So you same add an activity or resource, and then you click on the activities and you click on the SCORM package. So there are lots of tools that we will try to explore during our future sessions. But as you can see here, a lot of the tools here we have, some persons utilize the attendance feature, the collaborate session, feedback for polls, forums, right? So it's just a matter of you trying to take the time to learn, but most persons will utilize the assignment feature, the collaborate session if you're not utilizing Zoom, and the quiz. Those are the most popular features. Um, they and as I said, we really want to encourage persons to utilize the Turnitin assignment more. The H5P, I think when we have our future sessions, we'll go through that in more detail. That's going to take quite a bit of time to go through. But as I said, we will be having sessions frequently. And if you have a recommendation for a session that you would like to see hosted, you're a group of faculty and these are issues that concerns that you have, please feel free to send us an email so that we can ensure that our sessions are tailored to the needs that you have. All right, so Miss Peck, I hope I did well by you. All right, let's see if there's any questions at this time.
Very well, Mrs. Anderson.
All right, you can hear that Miss Peck still not so well, but thankfully she's getting better. On Monday she sounded terrible. All right, Mrs. Headley Smith is saying Zoom was one of the features last semester, even though it was not activated. Is there a main reason why it was removed? All right, so yes, Mrs. Headley Smith. So they were trying to integrate it into our platform and it wasn't working. So it was there, but it was really just a dummy feature because it wasn't, the integration did not work the way that they wanted it to work. So that's why they removed it because it wasn't working. So even though you saw it, we never actually had access to creating Zoom links on the Blackboard Collaborate platform. That was something that we explored, but it wasn't possible, at least when we explored it last semester, it wasn't possible to integrate it the way that we are able to integrate Blackboard Collaborate. Okay, Mrs. Anderson Chung, your hand is up. Go ahead, please.
All right. And just remembering this issue that some students had or have experienced. I do Spanish and or things are in Spanish. There are times when the students send screenshots to say, Miss, I don't know what I pressed, but all I'm now seeing is English. Can you give me some ideas to what it is they might have touched or done to get that to come on? I still can't figure it out.
Off the top of my head, that's not something I can think. Miss Beck,
Right. So
anything on off the top of your head?
yeah, Mrs. Strong, so you're saying that if I was hearing correctly, so typically, so your course page would be in Spanish and the students were able to click on
Cor-
something that converted everything to English.
like for instance, when we set the tests and stuff, the questions are there
Mm-hmm.
in Spanish. We do it in
Okay.
quiz. It's in
Mm-hmm.
Spanish and everything, so it's not so much like the course page is in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
The quiz, the instructions and stuff in Spanish, the reading passage in Spanish, and somehow I don't know what it is that they click on. They're saying, Miss, I am seeing this in English. I don't know what I did. How do I get it off? And I couldn't even guide them. I had no clue as to what happened. I
Right.
found it very strange.
Yeah, so there is this option, and I think it's something I'm looking for it even right now. It's a little translate tool that is associated to the Google Chrome browser. So for example, right now, if I go to a page that is in a different language, it automatically changes the language to English for me without me
Me not
clicking
like
on
them
it.
something here, no. It's just defeating
Right.
the
So
purpose.
Right, so
so
it's
Funny
not
I
how
a,
guess
it's not a, it's not a Moodle feature.
it's
That's the
not
point.
something
oh, it's
Yeah.
Moodle
not a Moodle thing.
integrated. No, it's
Okay.
not Moodle integrated. It's a browser
Hurrah.
related feature.
Is there anything
Yeah,
that I can do?
not to my knowledge. Not to
I
my
think the
knowledge.
only thing now I probably can do is just probably include images and stuff instead of typing the text in there. I think that's the best thing we can
And
do for now.
question, Mrs. Strong, do you realize that only some students have the issue or all students?
It's not all of them. It's just one or two.
Right,
And
because
Is
they
you know,
have
yeah.
they
that
would say,
filter attached to their browser. So yeah, I don't know how you could set the only thing I can think of is to do the questions, capture them as images and upload them to the LMS.
yeah, that is probably what I'm gonna have to do. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
also look at that what you mentioned and see if that happens to me. I'm gonna check it out later on.
Okay.
All right, because as I said, the person was quite surprised and didn't know what to do, and I couldn't advise the student either.
Right. Thank you for that, Miss Peg. Right. So it's
All right,
not
but thanks a lot.
right. So as
All
she's saying,
right.
it's not a Moodle feature. And sometimes you will see it like if you go on a Spanish website, it will say, "Do you want to translate to English?" So it's something that it is within the browser itself, not inherent within Moodle. Mrs. Headley Smith, your hand is up. Go ahead, please.
Hi, good afternoon again. I'm just repeating a question I'd sent in the chat earlier. Whenever we're in quiz mode, let's say my students are writing an essay. Sometimes I find it very difficult to read because the text might be running horizontally for most of them, while for a few, the text would be running vertically. Do you know what causes the difference in how the text is formatted when the students make their entries? So when it's horizontal, I will have to be scrolling sideways to read. It takes a lot of time.
All right, let me just double check if there's any session now, if there's any setting that speaks to that. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any, but let me just double check. Miss Peck,
Because I'm
if you know of
thinking
any, you
perhaps,
can
though,
say.
yeah, in my mind, I was thinking that perhaps those who type directly into the box, the text may flow vertically, while probably those who cut and paste, theirs could flow horizontally. That's what I was thinking. But I'm looking at how best we can prevent the students from cutting and pasting information, and feeling that they can get away with the grades.
Right.
You know,
Well, you,
I,
sorry, go
sorry,
ahead.
sorry, Kamna. I have seen it before, and I was thinking the same thing too, that perhaps they cut and paste things. That's the best thing that I guess we could check. I am also going to check to see if that happens, but that was the same thing. I always think that they would have cut and paste things, and that's why it turns out looking like that.
Yeah, that's something I've never seen, so I can't really speak to it.
I was just double checking to see the I don't think there's anything in the setting that speaks to no, you can require students to enter text, but I think you can still copy and paste. Let me look at the response template. There's nothing that there's no setting that you can enable that I'm seeing that indicates the direction of the text.
And there is no way that the lecturer could correct it either, because I checked for that. Because what
No,
I'm
I'm not
seeing,
seeing
can
anything.
you imagine an entire essay, probably 300 words, flowing in like 4 lines? So you read 100 line across, come back across, go again. It's
Right, yes, yes. That
time
sounds like copy and
consuming.
yes, that sounds like copy and pasting.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let me just double check the chat to see if there are any additional questions. All right, so I'm seeing where persons has so anyone who, if you have not yet put your email address in the chat and you would like to receive a copy of the recording, you can do same. All right, so if there are no additional questions at this time, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to come out. Thanks to Miss Peck, who is still recovering, but she is back at work, but just still not able to talk a lot. All right, so I see a last question here about how to do a YouTube video. So how to insert a YouTube video. So as I said, we recommend doing a link. So you can turn editing on, select add an activity or resource. You can do it two ways. If you go, well, I clicked on the wrong thing. Add an activity or resource. So if I go to resources, you can do it through a label or you can do it through a URL. So if I go to the label, right, I can select the link option and I can enter the URL there, or I can just enter the URL directly without a label, select add an activity or resource, go to resource and select URL, put the name of the video and put the name of the URL. So you just right click and get the URL from YouTube. All right, so I hope that answered your question. All right, so no other questions at this time.
What happens if you want to put the video edit in your description or something? I'm just
Put the
thinking
video on?
outside. If you want to put it maybe in a description or somewhere.
As in like a description of the video?
No, like you want to put up a video on your page, whatever, wherever, without using the URL.
So
So
you
that
mean like a video that you
the same
created?
thing we told about that we upload videos and it take up space, but you want to use it without giving the URL.
I'm not well.
So, right, so let me, Mrs. Ware, is it that you want the video to be visibly seen on the course page? You don't want
Yes,
it,
yeah,
you
right,
don't want it to
right.
be
I want
shared
it
by
to
a
be,
link. You want the actual video.
no, I want them to see it ongoing on the page.
Right. So the label option can be used, or you can just drag and drop the video from any open folder directly to your course page.
All right, so the first way that I showed you is that's how you would do it using the label. So when you put in the link through the label, it would actually show up. And you can also use the label to record a 2-minute video as well. All right, so I hope that helped. All right, everyone. So we thank you so much for coming, and we hope that this session was useful. And as we have additional sessions throughout the semester, please feel free to attend. And as I indicated, if you have any special requests or any special needs for training, please send us same, and then we can see how we can arrange that. All right. So thank you so much for coming, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Ms. Peck, we pray for continued recovery and that you'll be back to full health. All right, everyone, keep safe.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you too.
Thank you.